Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today is the kickoff of season 3 of my podcast. I'm really thankful for everybody that subscribed to it. And today I have two very special guests that have decided to make a full life change, and we're going to interview them. So, welcome, Taran and Andy, to the show. How are you both doing?
Great. Thanks,
Pretty good.
Zach. So excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
So, a couple of weeks ago, I was scrolling through my Instagram and I seen this new suggested Instagram page. It's at trandy.trek at Instagram.
Tandy Trek. Yeah. Taran
Handy
and
Trek. And I'm like, what is this? And I looked it up, and then I went to Taran and Andy's Instagram pages, and I realized that they are both like doing this huge major change and have decided to quit their jobs, get a camper and a truck, and just take a year off. And we're going to get into this and talk about how do you make this decision. So is that kind of accurate what I've said?
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. Yeah, it's been something we've kind of been building toward for a couple of years now, getting ready for. But yeah, we just felt like it was the right time to make the plunge, and we're doing it.
Awesome. So let's give the audience a little bit of details about you. So how long have you been together and how long have you been married?
Yeah, so we've been together 11 and a half years.
Yeah, 12 years in August.
12 years in August. Yeah, we met August 31st, 2012. I was a freshman in college, and Andy was just hanging around campus looking for freshman boys. And
Good for him.
right.
It worked out. So
Yeah, our friend Christian introduced us, and we've been together ever since. And we got married in 2018. It was the 6-year anniversary of us meeting. So we got married on the same day that we met, August 31st.
That's awesome. So just to give the audience history of how I know Taran and I worked at the same company together for several years. And then during COVID, Taran him and Andy decided they were going to leave the Boston area and move to Salt Lake City. And so they were in Salt Lake City. Were you there for like 3 years or so?
Yeah, coming up on 3 years.
In
June of 2021 is when we moved out. Yeah.
And I always enjoy seeing your Instagram pictures because you're always skiing or doing something naturey or outdoor, and it's always like oh wow, that's amazing. So you said that you've been trying to plan this in your head for the last couple of years, and what made you finally decide now's the time? Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really Andy is a big ideas guy. He's the reason we moved to Salt Lake City and have done a lot of the stuff that we've done in our life. And I guess I'm just so much of a yes man that it's kind of a deadly combination of taking a plunge into these crazy ideas. And yeah, you mentioned we've been thinking about it for a couple of years. I don't even remember exactly how we came up with it. I think we were like sitting in our hot tub one night, and like Andy was like, "Wouldn't it be crazy if we just quit our jobs and just traveled around?" And we just kind of started dreaming about it. It was just fun to think about for a while. Like what would we do with those 2 years? Like, or what would we do with a year off? Like, where would we go? What kinds of things would we do?
Yeah.
And you mentioned, one of the things that brought us to Salt Lake City is we really love the outdoors. We love nature.
Yeah.
We love spending time in nature. And, that was something that came about like during COVID when we were looking for something to do, just like everyone was. We were stuck inside and we were like, how do we still have fun? And so we started hiking a lot more. We took up mountain biking. We started skiing a lot more, and Salt Lake is a great place to live, to do all of those things. So we'd kind of gotten into the outdoors a lot more, and recreating outdoors. And so we had like looked at buying a truck camper and a truck to go along with it, and really just to travel around and go a lot of different places that bring us to places that are just more difficult to get to, and that's kind of been a big draw for us, I would say.
I think a huge part of it was during COVID. One of my ideas was, if we're going to be living in this small apartment in Boston and working remotely, like, why don't we just do this on the road? Like, why don't we do this in a van? So that idea was hatched on a hike we were doing in New Hampshire. And I said, let's buy a van and see how long we can live in it. So we bought a van, like within a month, and just started traveling across the country. So we got a little taste of it then, and we were like, this is awesome. We love this. And like the week that we took off while we were traveling, like from our jobs, and didn't have to worry about like plugging into meetings and checking emails and like just being completely kind of off the grid. Those were like the best weeks of our lives. Like we loved just the freedom that we had and just like what we were able to do. So we wanted to replicate that like on a larger scale. And that's really why we decided to take
And
this
is
year
your
off.
mind, is your mind like so much more clear? Like, do you have less anxiety now and everything now that you're kind of out in nature and you're not having to worry about a job or dialing into meetings and things like that? Like, how are you mentally feeling?
I feel like it still hasn't fully set in yet. Like we're 2 weeks in, so it's kind of it still has just felt like one big vacation, I would say. And so I think probably give us another like 1 or 2 weeks and it'll really start to be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what are like where do
Yeah.
we put all of our energy? I mean, all of our energy right now is just going into like traveling and living in this thing. And so it's kind of keeping us very occupied. But I think I can imagine a few weeks from now, or maybe a month or so, like really having that set in where it's like, I have nothing to do. I have no projects to work on. I have no
Yeah.
deadlines. Like it's kind of
I
a
mean, I
weird.
think that would be an amazing feeling though. Like whenever I remember being very like envious of you whenever during COVID, whenever you were kind of off doing in the van that you rented. I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, why didn't we try to do something like that? Not that I think I could have survived with Andrew doing that, but I still like I love the idea of just kind of going off and experiencing things. Or I wish we would have like went off and rented a beach house somewhere or did something else like that. And we unfortunately didn't do that. So next pandemic we'll do that. But
Right.
um so did you have a house in Salt Lake that you had to sell, or were you just renting, or is it still there? Like did you I feel like you just kind of got up and left. And I love the Instagram post where you're like walking out of your job and you're like, I quit.
I know. I know. That was a weird feeling, but yeah, the house is still there. And we have renters.
Okay.
There's this website called Furnish Finder where it's literally people who are looking for like short term, rental, like a little bit longer than an Airbnb,
Yeah.
but less, commitment than like a full lease. And so we found a couple who was looking to move to Salt Lake, and they're getting ready to have a baby, and so they didn't want to like go through the hassle of like
Yeah.
moving a bunch of stuff and everything. So it worked out really well.
So you dedicated to do this for 1 year though? Like that's your plan? Like do it for a year at least, or even could it go longer?
Yeah, they have a lease for 10 months with us. And then it is month to month after that. And they're like, we would stay here as long as you'll let us. So yeah, towards the end of our trip, we're going to start seeing like, are we ready to come back? Do we have enough budget to keep going? Like,
Yeah.
do we need to come back and, start career searching again? So we will.
If Andy has his way, though, we're going to turn into internet influencers and just stay on the road forever.
Exactly. And then let's talk about that afterwards. So, because I'm getting 5,000 listeners a day in my podcast, so I can help you with that a little bit. So,
Amazing.
do,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you do you have a fear kind of though of after you are done with, let's say in 10 months or a year, like it's time, you're like, oh, we're out of budget, we need to go back to the real world. Do you kind of fear that a bit? Because I feel like no. Okay, I feel like I
No,
would be like,
It's
go ahead.
it's like funny that like I like even before we started the trip, I'm already excited to like be back in our house, like which is a
Okay.
crazy thing to even say or think about. But when we like stopped doing we lived in the van for about 4 months, and like the second we got back to our house, our condo in Boston, we were like, oh my God, the water just like runs forever. Like
Yes.
you can just turn the faucet on and not have to
Yeah.
be so conscious about like using every drop of water that you use. And we have space, we have a kitchen, we able to like we have a couch that we can sit on, and it's
Yeah.
just like having all of those amenities again is like an amazing feeling. So like in some ways I'm excited for that already. It's kind of gone away, I think, a lot recently. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I do not want to go back and like sit in a house again, but
Yeah.
I know that that's there, and I think that that's like part of it that makes it this easier almost.
So where are you at today? Like I believe you're in Canada, right?
Yeah, we're in the Yukon, so we're in
Wow.
Whitehorse, which is the capital of the Yukon, and it's a cool town. It's very far north. It does not get dark here this time of year, so we're thankful for the blackout shades that we have.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Tons of breweries, lots of outdoor, you know, recreation opportunities. We're staying at a hot springs a little bit north of the city, so it's quite nice.
And what are you kind of doing in the daytime? Like, what's a typical day for you when you wake up in the morning? Kind of walk me through that.
Yeah, well, Andy puts on the coffee, and we drink coffee, and we kind of lay in bed and start to plan out our day a little bit. And getting the camper ready to like depart and start driving is like an activity in itself, just like putting away all the systems and kind of tidying up. And then what we've been doing the last couple of weeks is just driving quite a bit. I mean, not nearly as much as you could do if you're going to Alaska. We've met people along the way who are doing this whole drive in a week, and so they're driving 8 to 10 hours a day, which is a lot. And we have a year, so we have plenty of time. And so we've been doing 3 or 4 hours of driving a day. And then we always try and find some activity to do along the way. So if it's a hike or a bike ride or something, just to stay active. And we're traveling with our dog, and he's a hyperactive dog that needs a lot of exercise. Yeah. So we get out and do something, and then we start looking for a camp spot. And so we have some apps that we use to try and find a place to stay. But we're mostly staying in like dispersed camping or primitive campgrounds where we're either looking for a spot that's not like, hasn't been found, is not marked in some way, or just a someplace that's free.
And it's amazing where we've camped along a lake for the last 5 nights, it's just like, you just pull off this road, go down and go off a highway, go down a dirt road, and all of a sudden you're just at a lake, and there's a little fire ring, and you just set up, and it's like, I would pay $100 a night to camp on this beautiful, like, the lake is so pristine and like so clear, and
but it's free.
It's free. That's awesome.
This is amazing.
Yeah. And are you meeting people along the way? Like, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it sounds like you're kind of more, you're not in like a heavy populated campground, but have you met anybody kind of on your adventure? And do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, definitely. We've met a lot of people who are doing exactly what we're doing, maybe for different reasons. Like, we've met some people who are going up to Alaska to work for the summer, and or people seasonal. There's a lot of retired people who are doing what we're doing, and so certainly older populations, but also young people who are doing it as well. And yeah, there's lots of different stories. I mean, we were in a brewery last night, and the woman working there was from Ukraine, and she had just come out here, I think a month ago or a month or two ago, to escape the war there. And so it's just really, really interesting for sure, the people that we're meeting. But yeah, it fluctuates. So we go 3 days without talking to another person, and then all of a sudden, we get a chance to meet some people. So it's nice.
So tell me what your plan is. Right now you're headed to Alaska. You'll be there probably for the summer. Is that kind of your plan? And then get out of there before the winter comes? And then where will you head, like, in the fall or winter?
Yeah, the plan is to leave Alaska and actually take a ferry system that goes from Alaska back to the lower 48. So you can actually bring the truck and the camper and the dog on that. Wow. It takes a few days, but you see a lot of beautiful things along the way. So we're excited for that. And then once we get back to the States, the lower 48, we will head over to Idaho to see Taran's family for for a birthday and a wedding that we were attending. And then we'll head down south through California down into Baja, and we'll spend basically 2 months, we think, in Baja. And then Taran's parents will fly down to Cabo, pick up the dog and the camper, and they'll actually drive it north and like meet us back in LA. And while they're doing that, we're going to fly to Southeast Asia.
Awesome.
Probably like 8 or 10 weeks in Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Very cool. Where in Southeast Asia will you go?
Vietnam for sure. Thailand, probably Malaysia. We both like hiking and scuba diving, and so yeah, we'll try to find some beaches, and just the cost of like living there and staying there is pretty affordable. So yeah, it's a great place for a kind of a budget conscious couple that has no income.
Yeah, got it. I mean, Andrew's going to be so jealous because Vietnam and Thailand are literally the 2 places that we've been talking about going for so long. And so when I tell him that you're going for 8 to 10 weeks, he's going to probably like, I need to find somebody else that will do this with me.
Neither of you have ever been?
I mean, I've been to Singapore and India and China, but I've never been to Vietnam or Thailand. They're on top of our list to do. That's something. He had a friend that went to Vietnam years ago and talked about just how affordable it was. You can get a massage like for $10 and you have like a whole staff at your hotel room, and it's just it's so cheap, and you're just treated so well there for such little amount of money. So he just, and then the hiking, and I want to go to Cambodia too. That's another piece. That's another part I want to kind of go to. So
well, let's meet up there, January 2025.
yeah, maybe, you never know. How hard was it to leave your friends in Salt Lake?
That was tough. That was tough. I like I equated a lot to leaving friends in Boston too, where at the time when we said goodbye in Boston, I was so naive about what it meant to say goodbye. I was like, oh, we live in such a globalized world. We're flying back and forth all the time. We'll see you guys. And
we both still had jobs in Boston at that point too. So we're like, oh, we'll be back all the time. Little do we know we'd change our jobs and you have, a local Salt Lake City job, or mine was fully remote.
Yeah. And so yeah, it definitely, affected friendships in ways that I wasn't prepared for and was just very naive about. And I hope that the same thing doesn't happen with Salt Lake, because we are planning to return to Salt Lake and pick things back up with our friends there. But it feels like we're abandoning them to a certain degree, which I don't like.
Well, a year will go by fast.
Building a community. Like, we built this community of friends, and like we had an actually great network. And then we're like, okay, we're leaving like for a year. It's only a year, and everyone's like, yeah, that's a long time. Like, we'll see you in a year. And we started like having like regular weekly game nights with a whole group of people, and it's just like this is sad that like we're not going to have this. So
yeah, I mean, but just think of all the amazing people you'll probably meet over the next year, though. That I mean, you could end up meeting your like new best friends ever that you in Alaska. Who knows? And then you can go up to Alaska every summer and stay with them or something. So Salt Lake City will be where you return to. No plans to come back to the East Coast. I know Andy is not a big lover of the East Coast anymore, so you're back to Salt Lake after this adventure's done.
Yeah, we think so. We really love it there. It like I kind of said before, it fits all of our what we're looking for in a lifestyle. Like it is, and it does still have, even though it's in Utah, especially people on the East Coast probably have certain perceptions about the culture there, but it has a great gay community. Like, it's very inclusive in a lot of ways, while also having tons of outdoor access. So we really love it there.
And do you fear that you'll miss, kind of like what Andy was saying at one point, whenever you're like, oh, I have running water in my apartment in Boston and I have the couch. Do you think like there's going to be a point where you're like, I need to just go and get a nice 4-star hotel tonight just to like escape this?
Yeah, I think we'll probably hit that point at some point. And the nice thing is you can do that along the way.
Yeah.
Like, we can just pull up to a place, get an Airbnb or a hotel or something, and take a break. We also have friends in Anchorage that we're excited to see, and so we'll probably have a few nights at their house where we have all those amenities.
And have you been to Alaska before, either of you?
Never.
No, never.
It's amazing. I mean, I've did it through like a cruise and getting off and stuff, but it's probably one of the best trips that I've ever been on. So that and Yosemite are my 2 favorite trips I've ever done. So it's
awesome.
It's going to be amazing. So, and do you have a plan in the back of your head yet, like what you want to do with your careers whenever you are ending this, or is that like so far away and you don't even want to think about it at this point?
A little bit of both, yeah. For me, I fully expect to just kind of pick back up where I left off, and I think that was one of the really nice things about leaving my job is I was really scared to tell the people there that I was leaving, but everyone was so supportive and kind of like left the door open in a way that felt really nice. Like, I could just go back there if I, if it makes sense for me, but also still trying to keep an open mind to, like, we may discover new passions, new things on this year off that take us in different directions, which is totally fine. And we should be open to that. But as of right now, I kind of fully expect to just go back to my old job if they'll have
And was
me.
your family fully supportive of this whole experience? Both of your family? Were they
Yeah, definitely. I would say that probably questioned it a little bit at the beginning when we were talking about that, but we've been talking about it for so long with them that they've certainly understood where we're coming from and are very supportive. In fact, like the first 7 days of our trip, we actually did it with my parents because they also
awesome.
have a camper van, and so they came along with us, which was a really nice way to kind of start things off.
Cool. And do you ever, again, I know it's only been a few weeks, but you're together in this smaller camper. Do you ever need the alone time, or is being out in nature, sometimes you can take a walk by yourself and get that alone time that you need? I mean, how is it? You're kind of on top of each other. How is that going, or what do you expect to do whenever you're like, okay, it's been you and me for 3 months now living in this camper? Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we have a little bit of like a test case with the van a couple of years ago, and like learning how to communicate and like be very, very, very transparent about how each of us is feeling at different times when it's like, because you do have those times where it's like, I just need some space right now. I just need to go on a walk, whatever. Sometimes I think right now that feels a little scary because we're in bear country. So like we do want to like have each other.
Bear spray.
Yeah. But yeah, I think communication is huge, and knowing that that's a perfectly acceptable thing to give each other space, or to take half a day or a few hours or whatever to do your own thing. We just have to kind of be like very open about that and very communicative.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating to live in such a small space because you're like bumping into each other, or you're like looking for this thing and it's like, where did you put it? And again, it's like that communication to make sure that like we're keeping each other's like tempers and things in check. Because it could get pretty frustrating.
I mean, I think the 4-month van trip probably was perfect to do this for a longer time, just so you kind of got all those lessons learned. Because
definitely. The problem is I was like, I could go another 4 months in this, and Taran's like, get me out of here. So we will see how this all turns out.
Yeah, I have to say I'm so excited for you. When I seen this, I'm just like, it's so amazing that you two are on the same page. You want to do this. It's just, I love it. And I think that everybody that sees this is probably having a similar feeling. Like they're just going to really love your story about this. So do you want to just say your Instagram name again, and anything else you want people to know about you, and so they can follow you and kind of go through your journey with you?
Sure. Yeah. So it's Tandy Trek. So Taran and Andy combined is Tandy. And so it's Tandy period Trek. And yeah, we're, I think what you're describing, this like feeling of inspiration, is like something that we hope that people feel when they hear about what we're doing. I mean, we feel super fortunate to be able to do this kind of thing, like knowing that not everybody's situations like allows for you to just quit your job and take a year off. Like, so we feel very fortunate, but it's also something that we set as a goal for ourselves and like really have been working toward. And I do believe that like, if it may not be taking a year off, but if it's, going to East Asia, with your husband, or doing anything that you kind of view as like an aspirational, like bucket list item, like go for it. Like, I hope that everyone feels that.
Yeah, I think you're going to inspire a lot of people. So, and like I said, I'm probably going to have to hide this episode from my husband, because he's going to be like, "Yeah, they did it. We can do it too." So, and I don't think I could do it. But last question is what do you think is going to change? Are you thinking that there's going to be a major change? I mean, you're in some cases you're off the grid in some places that you are. Do you think that you're going to have your personality, or just the way you look at life, is going to change at all when this is over with?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I feel like you're more of the reflective type.
Yeah, I think that like a huge part of this is to like take time to reflect on my life so far, and like what I've been able to accomplish and what we've been able to do, and really think about like what the next part of our life is, and like what does it look like. And we've always been on the fence about having kids and about like growing our family, and that is something that's like kind of on the table, I think, for us in a big way. And I don't know if this journey is going to help us figure that out, or if it's going to make it even harder. But like it feels like if we have this like kind of sense of accomplishing something really amazing and really difficult together, that maybe it's like kind of showing us that we can actually do something else together. And maybe that is having kids. Maybe that's planning for the next one. I've been telling Taran that I want to do this every 7 years, just do a year off every 7 years until we retire. So we'll see if I can convince him of that.
I think it's a great idea, because do it when you're young and you can, because when you retire, you may not be able to do it. So do it while you can. I think it's great. Again, I'm so supportive of this. I think everyone's going to be so supportive of this. And I'm so happy that you guys took time to come on the podcast and talk about it. I'd love to follow up with you in maybe 2 or 3 months. You can kind of let people know how you're doing and where you're at, and, maybe just keep the audience up to date on that if you're into it. So
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. We're so thankful for having us on, and we're always happy to come back.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much. And I'll look at your next steps and your next adventure on Instagram. So everybody be sure to follow them on Instagram, and thanks so much for listening. Bye, everybody.